ask you some questions since you don't ask me. Last time we discussed the data types, as you remember. But today I will introduce you to the SPSS. And you already have seen the program, the software, how it looks like. It is quite similar to the Excel. I wonder if anybody already installed SPSS in his or her computer. Did you? Did anybody install SPSS?
No, Mr. I didn't.
Nobody? Anybody? Can, if anybody has, I would like to know. Nobody, okay. I suggest you, if you can find the SPSS software, please install it in your computer and try to, by watching this video, it is recorded, I think. By watching this video, you may repeat what we have done before the next sessions, because during your course, you would benefit from SPSS if you have. It's not a must for this course, but I strongly urge you, suggest you to have SPSS installed in your computer. Okay, last time we discussed the data types. Now, let us go to the PubMed. I have opened here a PubMed screen, and I have typed diabetes mellitus, knowledge, medical students. These are my keywords. And when I search with these keywords, I have 136 results. Okay, since we might need the full text, let me see those with the free full text available. How many? There are 65 articles with these, when I searched the PubMed with these keywords. Now, let me go through them and see what they're about. Knowledge and awareness of diabetes mellitus and risk factors in Saudi Arabia. An assessment of medical students' knowledge of pre-diabetes. Aha, that looks interesting. Pre-diabetes. Okay, we may have this. What else? Knowledge of medical students regarding diabetes mellitus in Karachi. Pakistani fellow.
Sir,
Yeah.
I cannot see the screen.
You can see the screen. So,
It's dark.
do we have any problem with this sharing?
No,
Oh,
I
you are
can
sharing.
No, you can see.
You can see. Okay, then maybe you have some connection problem then. Those who cannot see, maybe they have some connection problem.
Okay.
Okay. So let me click on this, and just to mention, in the exam you will face something similar. Okay. I clicked on this screen. An assessment of medical students' knowledge on pre-diabetes and prevention. This is, no, I didn't like it. Although it is an interesting topic, I want something with, which is easy to convert to an answerable clinical question. What about this one here? Pre-diabetes, yes. This one I checked before. I like it. Knowledge and perceptions about pre-diabetes amongst doctors, medical students, and patients in a tertiary care hospital of Islamabad. Easy to understand, isn't it? What did they do? They have checked the knowledge and perceptions. Perceptions, subjective feelings, and knowledge about pre-diabetes. This is a medical term, pre-diabetes, among doctors, medical students, and patients. Very good. Now I will write down this title here on a blank sheet. And I want you to help me to find out the variables. Which variables did these scholars study. If we would have their questionnaire, their data collection tool, how would it look like?
Their job.
Okay, then we have here some questions, questions, study questions. Okay, number one. What you said?
Jobs or special.
Okay. Who they are? They are either doctors, students, or patients. So let us call it the group. Group. Or who are you? What do you do? It's not that easy to ask this question, because if you ask what is your job, being a patient is not a job, isn't it? Let us call it what is your job? Okay, job is good, yeah. And the responses are what? Patient?
Mister, can we
Yes.
say, like, are you a doctor or a medical student or patient? Like 3 options.
Very good. Yeah, we have to give them 3 questions. Medical student and doctor. Okay, so we have to give these numbers. 1, patient. 2, medical doctor, medical student, and 3, doctor. This is one of the items. We can call this study questions, or we can call it the items, study items, or we can call it the variables. Okay. Okay, surely this will not appear in your questionnaire, but just I'm mentioning it for you, for your information. What else do they have here? What else did they do? This is a cross-sectional study. I will mention you later what it is. At Shifa Hospital, the same name of my previous hospital in Pakistan. And a structured questionnaire. They applied a questionnaire, structured questionnaire. And we are trying to find out what this structured questionnaire looked like. When we read the results, probably we will have an idea about the questions. Medical students, patients, only 44 physicians and students could accurately identify impaired fasting blood glucose, glycated hemoglobin, and impaired glucose tolerance criteria for prediabetes, respectively. So please help me to find the question here. What did they ask? What did they ask? They asked about the criteria. The criteria of impaired glucose tolerance, the criteria of glycated hemoglobin, and the criteria for impaired fasting glucose. So they will ask what are or is, I'm not sure how they ask it, what is the criteria of fasting blood glucose? What is the criteria of hemoglobin A1C for impaired glycated hemoglobin? And what is the criteria of prediabetes? Prediabetes. Okay. This is another question. What else did they ask? Keep reading. Respectively, there was no statistical relation in the identification with specialties, designations, and years of experience. So it seems
mention the time.
They ask also about the years of experience post-qualification. So if you are a doctor, for
How
doctor.
long have you been working?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's very good. How long have you been working? Of course, if you are a doctor, medical
Yes.
doctor. Okay. Okay, these 5 questions is sufficient, I think, for now. Maybe there are some other questions. If you read the full text of this article, we could formulate some other questions. Now, I want you to help me from remembering our last session. I want you to help me to describe what kind of data these are. Are these numerical data or categorical?
First one is categorical.
This one is
and
categorical.
Also nominal.
Okay, so this you mean is a categorical, and nominal. Anybody obliged? Does everybody agree?
It could be
Yes, I
ordinal,
agree.
but there is patient. That's why after medical school it becomes a medical student, it becomes a doctor, but there is
Yeah,
patient. That's why.
since there's patient, it cannot be ordinal. It is categorical, nominal. Congratulations, you got your score here. Okay, the second. What is the criteria of fasting blood glucose?
It's numerical. If it's number, it's
The criteria
answer
for,
is
yeah. If I ask this, what is the, Dr. Azamat, we would ask this as, what is the diagnostic,
What is the diagnostic criteria?
level, threshold for upper limit for fasting blood glucose? What is the upper limit, okay, for fasting blood glucose? I changed this question. Most probably it would be asked, and the same here. What is the upper limit? Upper limit. Usually they ask this, the upper limits for hemoglobin A1C, fasting blood glucose, and here it could be maybe the diagnostic criteria. Okay, if I ask the upper limit for fasting blood glucose, what would be this? What kind of question would this be? Variable? Is it a
Numerical?
It's a numerical variable. Numerical. Is it a numerical or discrete or continuous?
it's
America Street.
discrete.
Some say discrete. Anybody other opinion? Discrete. Numerical, discrete.
Can't it be continuous, mister?
It can be also continuous. It depends. You remember when you have millimole, your results as you report your results as millimole, it will be something like 4.3.
Yeah.
But if you report it as a milligram deciliter, then you will have 98. So discrete. But both answers would be correct here, but better to call it numerical continuous, okay? Numerical continuous. What about the upper limit of hemoglobin A1C? Have you seen any hemoglobin A1C result? What is the normal level?
120 around.
120 is for the fasting blood glucose, I think.
Or up
The
to
upper limit?
6.5%.
Yeah, Dr. Azama. This
How much?
6.5%.
Oh,
Okay, this is the normal limit for upper limit for hemoglobin A1C. If you hemoglobin A1C is glycated the hemoglobin, you know hemoglobin in your blood, it's carrying the oxygen. It's carrying the oxygen. And if you have too much glucose in your blood, some of this hemoglobin will be bound by glucose. And it should, in a normal person, it should not be a healthy person, it should not be more than 6.5% of the hemoglobin. So, and the blood glucose is 126 milligrams per deciliter. Okay. I don't know how much it is when you convert it in millimole. Maybe Dr. Azamat knows. Okay. So, if I ask what is the upper limit of hemoglobin A1C, it would be what kind of?
Numerical discrete.
Numerical discrete. Discrete means without a comma, discrete.
Oh, okay, continue.
If you have the comma, it is continuous. If I have here 126 milligram, it would be numerical discrete. But since in Kyrgyzstan you have the millimole per liter, you will have another threshold, which I don't know. That's why I'm asking Dr. Azamat.
5.5.
5.5, okay, millimole. Yeah, per liter, I think. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. So, go ahead. Let's go ahead. Question number 4. What is the criteria of pre-diabetes? This is a numerical or categorical? I'm asking the criteria. This is they are categories, huh? Categorical, and it is nominal. Okay, we don't have ordinal questions in this study. And how long have you been working? In years. In years.
Numerical discrete.
It's
Yes,
numerical discrete, yeah. Okay.
But Mr. Can't it be also continuous? Like I have been working for 6.5 years now. Yes,
of course. Yes, of course. That's why, please remember, let me show you the book, the page. Where was it? Somewhere in the beginning. Okay. Just remember this, what we said here, what we discussed here. We said we have categorical and numerical data. Although numerical data is divided into discrete and continuous, that doesn't matter so much. You can treat continuous data as discrete or discrete data as continuous. It's acceptable. Okay. So now if I have my questionnaire here, if I have my study questions here, the next step is to the SPSS. When I open the SPSS, I face a data view and the variable view. The first thing I have to do in SPSS before writing down the data, before writing it down, I need to define my variables. Here is a column with the variable names. The first variable, second variable, third variable. I will have, of course, an ID, as I said. Any study, as I said before, any study must have an ID, a number. So before writing all these studies, participant ID should also be there as one separate question. Okay. Participant ID. The second question is about what is your job? So I can call it question 1, job. I have to name them. Then fasting blood glucose comes next. Question 2, fasting blood glucose. naming the variables is totally depending on you. It is flexible. You can name it as you wish, but it should be something, a name you can from which you can easily find out what the question is about. Hemoglobin A1C, and the last one was question 4. Criteria. Was it about criteria? Yes, criteria and years. Criteria. And question 5, Q5, is about experience. Okay. When I switched the screens from variable view to data view, as you see, now I have the column headings here: ID, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, and so on. Let me go on. The second column, the first column is about the name. The second column is about the type of your data. What kind of data are you going to collect here? But although you see here numeric, this numeric is not related with our variable type. This is SPSS ask you, are you going to feed in here a number, a comma, a scientific notation, or a string, a text, free text? In almost 99% of the cases, we type in a number. Therefore, we will leave all this numeric. If you want to type in a text, like the patient name, participant name, then you should have it, you should convert it as, keep it as string. Okay. The third column is about the width. This is also, the width is the width of the, how many characters you need. Yeah, how many characters I will need? I will need 1 or 2 characters, sometimes 3 characters. If it is about, for example, the experience, it can be 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, but not 100 years. Therefore, I could have it 2 characters here, would be enough for me. But the default comes 8, so we leave it as 8, no problem. Decimals is for, as you can guess, is for the numerical and continuous variables. For continuous variables, we have decimals. Which of my data was continuous? Did I have any continuous? Yeah. Yes. Question 2 and 3 are continuous. Let me make this question 2 and 3 decimal 1 places. Okay. Because I might have decimal places here. I made it decimal 1 places. Now the names of the variables, the labels. What is your job? Control copy. I copy it. I paste it here. Okay. What is your job? What is the upper limit? As it is in the questionnaire. I have to type it as it is in the questionnaire. Then what is the upper limit of hemoglobin A1C? Okay. What is the criteria for pre-diabetes? Comes next. Okay. And my last question is about, if you are a doctor, how many years? I should have the units, of course. If it is a numerical variable, I should have written down the units. And in the next column, you see the values. These are the values for the categories. If you have a categorical data, I have 1, 2 categorical data here. So question number 1 and question number 4, I have to go and give the category names. Let me click on this categorical data and type in the categories. Category number 1 is what? Number 1, the category is patient. Category 2 is student and 3 is doctor. 1, patient. 2 is student. 3 is MD. Okay, I have defined the categories. If I go back here now and I start feeding data, participant number 1, job is 1, and I make an analysis of this here, this 1 will appear as medical student. Okay.
Student or patient?
Was it patient? No problem. Yes, it's a patient. Sorry. Number 1 is patient. It will appear as patient. And then what is the criteria for pre-diabetes? I will make it, knowing that the criteria not correct identification of the criteria for pre-diabetes. I change it a little bit, okay? If it is correct identification, then the answers would be, the response would be, the response would be what? 1, yes. Okay, he correctly identified. And for no, I should give what? Which code? For no?
2.
2?
0.
0 is the correct answer. Thank you. You remember, for yes and no questions, we decided to have, for yes and no questions, no is 0, 0 is no, and 1 is yes. That's how it should be coded. Okay, let's go on. We don't have any other categorical data, otherwise we should define all the categories. Missing data, in my last session I said we will not deal with the missing data, but it's possible to define the missing data. And here we have the columns and alignment. These two are just visual things. Huh? If you want to have a large column here, yeah, if you have at the gender, you should have another question. Question 6, gender, for example. But did they ask about the gender? I'm not sure. I didn't see any question about gender here. Is it there? Male, female? Do they mention about the sex here? No.
No.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Probably they didn't ask, but if they ask gender, you should have, of course, another question and mention sex or gender here.
Okay.
Okay, so you see, when I increase the width of the column, make it 25, visually the width of the column will increase here. When I make it small, like 2, you will have a small column here. The default comes as 8 characters. Alignment comes automatically right aligned. You can change it as you wish. Here we have the measure which is the type of the variable. The type of the variable we define here in this column. Let me click on it. The first one, the first question is about the ID, which is actually not so important for us. We will not use it in the analysis. We will use it just to give a unique identifier for each of our questionnaires. The second question, what is your job? What kind of variable it is? You see, in SPSS, we have three selections, scale, ordinal, and nominal. Actually, we should have four. Ordinal, nominal, discrete, and continuous. As you understand, what did SPSS do? SPSS merged these two categories, discrete and continuous, into one category, the scale. So, what is your job? Is what kind of variable? Which one I should select?
Or which was ordinal?
We decided it is
No,
nominal. It is nominal. What kind of variable is the second one? What is the upper limit of fasting blood glucose? It is a numerical variable. That's why we select the scale in SPSS. What is the upper limit of hemoglobin A1C? What kind of variable is this?
It's a numerical.
It's a numerical. Yeah, all numerical variables are shown in SPSS with a scale. Okay? And with a ruler, you see here, ruler. Then the correct identification of the diagnostic criteria for diabetes, it's an ordinal or nominal. It doesn't have ordinal.
Nominal.
Ordinal, oh yeah, nominal. And lastly, we have a scale variable, the years of experience.
Numerical.
It's a numerical variable. Yeah. So if I made this, the last column also I will not mention about it. It's the role of the variable for statistical analysis. If I prepared my variable, all my variables here, this means that my data set is ready to feed in data. Then I can go and continue with feeding data. Participant number one, job is 1, it was patient. Fasting blood glucose, let us say he said the upper threshold is 6. Hemoglobin A1C, let's say he said the upper threshold is 7. And the criteria he could not know, guess. And the experience, since this is not a medical doctor, we will not ask this, the experience. Participant number 2, number 3, and we continue as it is. These are, let's say, both students. If I finish this, then I directly can go and start doing analysis. You see, I just right-clicked here, right-click, select descriptive statistics, and I have a statistics here. I have, in this data set, I have total three participants. You see, there are 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1 patient. This is 33.3%. 2 students, 66.7%. I immediately have a descriptive statistics of my data. Okay, how do you feel about it?
We need to work with the software.
Yeah, it's not that difficult. It's very similar to Excel. You remember Excel? Most of you have used Excel and you have it installed in your computer, I'm sure.
Why don't you use Excel, sir?
Yeah, but the capacity of Excel in doing analysis is limited. Excel is very good for feeding data. It's available everywhere, and it's a common standard all over the world. But when you go to analysis, you see I just right-clicked here, and immediately I had a statistical option here, which I could select. In Excel, you don't have it.
It's more convenient than Excel.
And in SPSS, you can define that you have a variable view here where you can define your variables. In Excel, you don't, and in Excel you don't have it. If I type my data here in Excel, I will keep in mind what is 1, what is 2, and as you see here, what is your job? It gives me also the full explanation of the variable in the analysis. So this is a statistical software. It is specially developed for doing statistical analysis. But since some of the students will not be able to have it, I hope you all can find and install it in your computers and do your exercises with the SPSS. I will not request all of you to in the exams to do your analysis with SPSS. You may do it with the Excel. Writing your reports, you may benefit also from Excel, but since the SPSS is the most common software used. For example, let us see which software was used here in this study, Journal of Pakistan Medical Association. Let us see the full text of this. Okay, this is the full text of this study. Let's go to the methods section. Where is the methods section? Subject and methods. Here is the subject and methods. Data was analyzed. Can you see it here? Oops.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, do you see? SPSS. Yeah, I just randomly selected this. This is not, intentional, but maybe 90% of the studies you will see will say data was analyzed using SPSS. So therefore, I believe all my students, all these students in your class, you should know about SPSS. Do we need a break before keeping on?
Yes, I think we
Okay.
Yes.
might take a 10-minute break.
10 minutes break. 10 minutes break. See you later after 10 minutes. question. It had 4 components, which were Pico, yeah, Pico. Okay. So let us formulate an answerable clinical question here. Let us formulate a question and then try to find the answer. Try to decide which tests we will do. Out of these variables, can you help me to find a question? I will write one, then you go on with others, okay? I will write one. For example, is there a significant difference in the knowledge of the upper limit for fasting blood glucose? The upper limit for fasting blood glucose between students and MDs, medical students and MDs. Okay. Can you help me to find out the Pico here?
P is like
What is the P?
students and MDs.
The 2 groups I compare, are always the intervention
C.
and comparison. Yes, C and I, intervention and comparison. I should have at least 2 groups. It can be more than 2. Here we have 3 actually, but I mentioned the 2, you see, the students and MDs. So these are the intervention and comparison groups. One is intervention. It can be either one of them, and the other one is the comparison group. This is I and C. Okay, student and MDs are the intervention and the comparison groups. What is the outcome? What are we measuring?
Difference?
What do we measure?
Knowledge.
Fasting blood glucose.
Fasting blood glucose. FBG is the outcome of this study.
No, no, it's knowledge, their knowledge.
Knowledge is the problem or the issue we are dealing with. Knowledge. If you you could change the question and make it the knowledge as the outcome, but here it is the fasting blood glucose level, the limit for the fasting blood glucose. You see our question here. We asked about the upper limit of the fasting blood glucose, and we decided it is a numerical continuous variable. So what we are comparing between these 2 groups is not, did he know it or not? If it would be the knowledge, then we should have what kind of variable? A categorical variable, because the answer of knowledge is yes and no. Do you know it? Yes or no? But here we don't ask, do you know it? We ask, how much is it? What is the upper limit? And then it becomes a numerical data. Okay? So therefore, our outcome is a numerical variable here. Right? So problem is the knowledge. Diabetes knowledge. Intervention and comparison. I write them together. Intervention, students. Comparison, MDs. And outcome, is the fasting blood glucose. Okay, and this is a numerical variable. That's very crucial for me to know that what is my outcome. In any unanswerable clinical question, I should know the outcome, which is the most crucial part. Why is it crucial? Because when I'm going to select my hypothesis test, I should know what is my outcome. Is it a numerical or categorical data? If I have this question, is there a significant difference in the knowledge of upper limits of fasting blood glucose between medical students and MDs? Then the outcome is a numerical variable. Numerical. I should go here and select from these subgroups of tests. Numerical. Do I have one group, two groups, or more than two groups?
Two groups.
We have two
Patients
groups here.
and
We have two groups.
doctors and students.
Yes, doctors and students. I have two groups. If you have two groups, it can be paired or independent. Paired means repeated measures. Just to mention, okay? Paired means what? Paired, repeated measures in the same participants. Don't forget, okay? Two groups. Is it paired? Do I have two measurements in the same person? No, I don't. These two groups,
Independent.
the students and MDs, are independent. Independent, that means which test I should do to make this comparison? Unpaired t-test or the Wilcoxon test. Two tests, okay? So here for this, the solution would be, if I ask you which test we should perform, which test, which hypothesis test, your answer would be what? You should answer unpaired t-test or Wilcoxon. Unpaired t or Wilcoxon. These are two options, okay? Unpaired t-test or the Wilcoxon test should be performed in this case. So why do we have two tests here? Why not only one? As you see here also, paired t-test, Wilcoxon signed rank test. Unpaired t-test, Wilcoxon ranked. One-way ANOVA, Kruskal. As you see, under the numerical data, we have always two test names. One sample t-test, sign test. Always two alternatives, two options. The reason is, one of these is the parametric test. Wow, so many terms you have to keep in mind today. Parametric tests and non-parametric tests. Okay, we have parametric and non-parametric tests. These first tests, always here in this list, one sample T is a parametric test. Sign test is its alternative. Paired t-test is a parametric test. Wilcoxon sign rank test or sign test are non-parametric alternatives. Unpaired t is parametric and later I will mention you how we decide on a parametric test when it is time to discuss each of these tests, because the parametric tests have some assumptions. For example, enough or large enough sample size. Okay, have some assumptions. Non-parametric tests do not have the assumptions. They are rank tests. if you can, it is suggested to do the parametric tests. Through the course later, I will mention you the assumptions for each parametric test. For each of these parametric tests, we have, and don't be afraid, they are very similar to each other. So each test has some assumptions. If you can meet the assumptions, you will do the parametric test. And if you cannot meet the assumptions, you go and you do the non-parametric alternative. Just to show you, in the SPSS, let us feed some data here, 5, and this should be, okay, 4.6, hemoglobin A1C, 4.6, hemoglobin A1C here is, let's say, 8, this is 9, and this criteria experience, this has 6 years experience, and it is a medical doctor, and this is number 4, and he said, okay, 5.5 and 6.5, correct, identified. Okay, so if our question, study question is there a significant difference in the knowledge of the upper limit for fasting blood between medical and MDs? Then I know from the flowchart, I know that I have a numerical outcome variable, 2 groups, and they're independent. I should go and do either the Ampere t-test or the Wilcoxon. Let me go to the SPSS, analyze non-parametric tests. Because I don't have enough sample size, I have only 4 participants. I should go here to the 2 independent samples compared to independent samples. And here we have the Mann-Whitney U-test. Okay, so let me write down here. Should be here. Okay. Although we have here this Wilcoxon test, oops, go back. Although we have here the pointer options, pen. We have here the Wilcoxon rank sum test and Ampere t-test. Instead of Wilcoxon, the SPSS uses the Mann-Whitney U-test. Please take your notes, okay? Mann-Whitney U. Mann-Whitney U-test, you see? In the SPSS, when I go to analyze non-parametric tests and select the 2 independent samples, I have here the Mann-Whitney U-test. In our book, it is mentioned as Wilcoxon rank sum test, which is also possible to do, but the SPSS performs the Mann-Whitney U-test. Okay, so now I will increase my speed a little bit. I will increase my speed, and let us assume we have another scenario. It may be related with this or not, but some of them I will just imagine, okay? I have a numerical data which I measured only in one group. One group means you measured in the population and you want to, in a sample, and you want to compare it with the population. I measured the height, weight, and numerical data, height or weight, in a group, let's say in other 2 medical students, 19B or 19A, and I want to compare it with a known mean. In this case, my option would be one sample t-test, or if I cannot do this, this is the parametric alternative. The non-parametric test would be the sign test. Can you help me to find another numerical variable? Let us measure something else, numerical. Can you help me by giving an example? Another numerical data? I'm asking the class. For example, Eileen. Is she there, Eileen?
Yes.
Okay, Eileen. Help me to formulate another hypothesis test. Give me a numerical data. A numerical variable. Come on, you know. Age, you mentioned already. Blood glucose. Hemoglobin A1C. Can somebody help Eileen?
Just we can give, for example, rate.
Rate of what?
Heart.
Heart rate. Okay, heart rate. Heart rate is acceptable. Heart rate. Heart rate. We measured the heart rate. BPM, beat per minute. Beats
Yes.
per minute. How many beats do you have in a minute? Heartbeats. And we want to have the scenario as paired. So paired means two measurements in the same person. Beat per minute before exercise and after exercise. Okay. I want to compare before and after. Before and after. If I measure the heart rate of the students before exercise, I have written it in the SPSS. I want to compare it with the heart rates after exercise. Then the test to be used is the paired samples test. If I cannot do, because this is a parametric test, the first test always parametric. It's a parametric test. This is a non-parametric test. It's a parametric test. This one is a non-parametric test. Here I have the unpaired t-test, the parametric test. Wilcoxon or Mann-Whitney is a non-parametric test, and so on. If I cannot do the parametric test, my alternative would be the Wilcoxon. Or here we have the Wilcoxon. This I mentioned already, two independent groups. What about more than two groups? I measured the BPM or the blood glucose or fasting blood glucose, and I want to measure it in more than two groups. I want to compare it between more than two groups.
Okay, what if we measured the saturation of the blood?
Just as in this example, huh? They measured, they made all these comparisons. They made all these comparisons between three groups: medical students, patients, and doctors. They have three groups, and then they compare the numerical continuous variable, fasting blood glucose, or they compare the hemoglobin A1C. If you want to do this comparison, you must use the ANOVA test. Did they mention here about ANOVA? Let me see. They should have mentioned, but seems they didn't. They didn't mention about any of the test names.
See, the last line is saying for impaired fasting glucose. This one.
Sorry?
Oh, there is the last line.
The last line?
Yes.
Impaired fasting glucose, hemoglobin A1C, IgT, but they didn't mention about the hypothesis test. They didn't mention about, they should mention about the one-way ANOVA. Okay? So they found their p-values. As mentioned here, they have a p-value. You see, p larger than, greater than 0.5. Actually, they wrote it wrong. By doing which test? This test here, the one-way ANOVA test. One-way ANOVA. If you cannot do the one-way ANOVA, your alternative would be what? The Kruskal-Wallis. Okay. If I ask you in the exam, Aydin, you didn't answer my question. Huh? If I ask you in the exam, you want to compare fasting blood glucose, mean fasting blood glucose levels between students, medical doctors, and patients. Which hypothesis test you are going to do? Your answer should be what? The one-way ANOVA. This is the parametric test, of course. If you cannot perform the one-way ANOVA, you go for the non-parametric alternative, which is the Kruskal-Wallis. Let me move on to the categorical data. If my question is has a categorical outcome, my second question now, I will formulate another question. Okay. Let's go here. The second question, it should be a categorical now. The outcome should be categorical. Okay. Knowing yes, no. Knowing the criteria. Is there a significant difference in knowing the criteria for diabetes? Between medical students and MDs. If I change my question into this, is there a significant difference in knowing the criteria? Then my outcome here, the outcome would become knowing the criteria, which is a categorical nominal variable, of course. And then if I have a categorical nominal variable, if I have two categories, you see, two categories. How many categories I have here? Two categories, one yes, two no. Categorical data, two categories. How many groups I compare? I compare two groups, medical students and MDs. Are they paired? You know what paired means now?
Yes.
Are they paired?
No,
Same.
they are not.
So I have paired? No, they are not paired. They are independent. They are different groups, different people, MDs and students, independent. The test I should use is the chi-square test. Chi-square, you may also show with this symbol. Huh? This is a chi-square. This is a Greek alphabet. In the Greek alphabet, we have the chi, the letter chi. Okay, chi-square. But under the categorical tests, we don't have two alternatives. We don't have parametric, non-parametric. All the categorical tests are non-parametric. You see, sometimes we have two tests here, but that doesn't mean they are parametric and non-parametric. Usually, we have only one test here, the McNamara test or the chi-square test. One test only, okay? So parametric is only for the numerical side. If I have two groups and they are independent, and then the test I should use here for this, the test to be used is what? Chi-square. Okay. But also chi-square has some conditions. If it is not possible to perform chi-square, then we may also go for the Fisher's exact test.
Sir, when we use the Fisher exact?
It's better if I explain it to you in our later sessions. We have a session for this, when to use chi-square and when to use the Fisher's exact test. But it's related with the sample size. It's related with the sample size. Here with the chi-square, we have the terms such as the observed and expected values. Observed and expected Okay, and there are some rules concerning the expected ones. Expected values should be more than 5, and if it is less than 5, so it's related with the sample size. It's related with the sample size. But I will explain in the. I have a special
In the
session
future.
for this. I have a special session for this. But thank you again. Anyways, thank you for that question.
Okay.
So let me move on. If I have a categorical data and 2 categories, but 1 group, let us try to give an example for this, a scenario. 2 categories, yes, no, categorical data. Did the participants know the correct criteria for diabetes? Okay. If this is my question, I have 2 categories. Yes, no, they did not. And if I have only 1 group and I want to compare it with the population, then I should do a Z-test for a proportion or the sign test. Don't be afraid if this is the first time you hear these names, but I have a separate session for each of these tests, as I said before. If you have a categorical data, 2 categories and 2 groups, knowing the correctly identifying the diagnostic criteria for diabetes, yes and no. 2 groups paired. It means you measured it twice. Before again here, before the class, before the teaching, before any intervention, before and after. If you have measured it twice, then you do the McNemar's test. If you have a categorical data, 2 categories, but more than 2 groups, as it was in our example, as it is in our example here, these people, they have more than 2 groups, medical students, patients, and doctors, and they compared whether these people, these participants, could correctly identify the diagnostic criteria for pre-diabetes. And then the test they should have done is the chi-square test. Chi-square test. Or we have also the chi-square trend test. I will mention which is what. Lastly, we may have more than 2 categories in a categorical data, but that's almost similar. You see, here also we use the chi-square test as it is used here. If it is independent, you always use the chi-square test. So just a hint to you, if you don't know anything, if you don't remember anything from this, if you have a categorical data, go for the chi-square test. You see, all the categorical data, they use, except some scenarios, you will use mostly the chi-square test. So this comes in the exam. Please try to understand this flow chart. Please try to keep in mind and memorize which scenario goes for which test. And if you don't understand it, ask me in the next session. I will explain you in detail. But don't be afraid, we will have separate sessions for each of these tests, separate classes. Yes, that's all for today. What time is it? Do we have time for questions?
Sir, it's an question.
Please, go ahead.
Sir, you use it one of the research. What if I wanna I picked one of the research and I wanna do a questionnaire, and I want someone to check it When can I do that? Like practice by my own.
You want to do your own study, you already will do your studies. You have the practical sessions in the afternoons, and you will
No, not like that. Like I'm just working homework. It's not for that practical.
Yeah, you want to do your own homework. You go to the PubMed. You find your studies, as I did here. Similar studies. You find one, and you want to do copy it. You want to do the same. For example, a brief interactive training with medical students improves their diabetes knowledge. Okay, and then you try to find out the variables.
Questions. I'll do the questions, and I'll do the one from the website.
Yeah, and you once you have the questions, then you go and collect your data, but of course not from the website. You have to collect your data from the real people. You see which test they used? They used the chi-square test. As we have learned, this chi-square is very important. It's very frequently used, the chi-square test. And they use also the pair t-test. You see, where was the pair t-test? In which scenario? Pair t-test. Here you see pair t-test, numerical data, 2 groups. So they should have 2 groups. I understand if they have used the numerical, the pair t-test, I understand that they have a numerical data and they compare it before and after. Of course, they have a brief interactive training. So they gave a training to the medical students and they measured their diabetes knowledge before and after. They compared the scores. That's why they used the pair t-test.
Okay.
Teacher,
Good. Yes.
do we have in our book like those tests informations about? Can we read from there?
Sorry, I didn't understand.
Do
Repeat your question.
Do we have informations about these tests like that you taught us in our group?
What you mean by in our group? You have
in our book, I mean, like medical glance. What can you read from there? Okay.
In the book you have it. Yeah, you have it. You have it in the book. Yeah, of course. And we here you see, it's study design, hypothesis testing. You see in the book, we have the names of each tests. Don't worry. I will go one by one through all of these tests. One by one, we will mention all these tests. Numerical data. For example, some numerical data, a single group.
Thank you.
You see? Numerical data to related groups. The pair t-test. You have it in the book. If you want to go, you go and read it now, or you wait until the day we will have the session, then you can read it.
Okay.
Don't worry. See you next time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. See you.
Bye-bye.